I wrote a whole script about a topic that relates to the subject, but it headed in an unwanted direction with no purpose. I spent hours on it, but it was scrapped due to lack of satisfaction. Bigotry is, if not one of the biggest problems in society right now. It affects everybody's lives in numerous ways, but mainly in a political matter. I acknowledge that I have quote-unquote leftist traits. I believe it is important to respect each individual as they should. After all, we are all living, breathing organisms who share the same thought and emotions, such as love and hate. But I really don't want to assign myself to any side of this political spectrum, not that I should. A house divided among itself is pretty lame and counterintuitive. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Bigotry, in my own words, is the unreasonable devotion of resentment towards a certain group. It usually, typically always, manifests into homo transphobia, hatred of a specific religion, or racism. I am neither homo or transphobic. I support all those who genuinely feel the way they do. I may not understand it, but I shouldn't because that's not me and I'm not in that situation. But somebody else is, and the proper thing to do is to accept and respect their decision, even if you may not respect their beliefs. This applies to any and almost all situations. In the end, they are just like you and I. It seriously pisses me off though when people start to make the aforementioned phobias their personality. I respect a select few of those who do have these views because we all have our reasons. Just as a gay person wants us to respect them, we should respect those who may view them less than favorable too. It's the only way I believe we can really achieve harmony, even in the slightest. Nobody's gonna agree collectively, but tensions can be relieved if people understood both sides fairly. But it's not okay when people stick to one side and absolutely blast the other. Instagram, for example, is such a cesspool right now, and it's because of this reason. I can't even scroll the comments of a funny meme without seeing some 14-year-old incel saying, like if you're not gay, or F pride. It's lame shit, and in Xbox 360 terms, it's just flat out gay.
Hey, you're just mad because I'll be able to do something with my fucking guitar in hands that you'll never be able to achieve in your entire life, kid. So yeah, you're gay.
That behavior is obnoxious and it'll take you nowhere. It's made up of teens and young adults who are desperate to be a part of something, and unfortunately they'd rather complain about something that seriously really should be at the bottom of the list compared to bigger fish we need to fry. Calling a specific sexual orientation or identification a mental illness is absolutely disgusting. People also associate the LGBTQ with grooming, and as much as it bothers me, to a certain extent it's true, which is unfortunate, but it's just not the way you think. I mentioned my previous script, and it wasn't just to provide some context. Originally it was sparked because of two controversial episodes of Transformer Earthspark. I'll play them for you here now.
Of course. Morgan, can you switch,
Nightshade's pronouns are they, them.
He or she just doesn't fit who I am.
My apologies. Please switch their piece.
I know I'm safe when I'm with my friends or other non-binary people.
Non-binary?
People who aren't female or male. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have assumed.
I always knew my pronouns felt right, but what a wonderful word.
You shut the hell up!
I'm sure you can definitely understand what gave it its title, and quite honestly, it really infuriated me at first. First off, I absolutely love Transformers, and I grew up on other movies and shows like Transformers Prime. Chef's kiss to that, because that show was an absolute masterpiece. I feel incredibly insulted that they even made this decision to include it in a Transformers show. It's absolutely beyond me, but the main issue with that is it's a kid's show. Personally, children should not be taught about pride at such an early age. They're in their developmental stages, and as everybody knows, they can be heavily influenced by a character that they find authority in. There's a major difference in truly feeling the way you do and being almost coerced or conditioned and somewhat being forced into feeling the way you do. That is a hill that I will absolutely die on. I can maybe see this being a somewhat quote-unquote acceptable plot point if it were for a target of an older and mature audience and maybe handled more correctly. Transformers do learn how to communicate with humans through scanning the net, but even then it's just for learning languages and the lingua franca of where they're at. It does not, for the most part, affect their personalities. I'm still baffled. And this isn't the only example. There are so many more shows directed towards the younger audience that does the same thing, which definitely isn't right. This isn't even directed just towards the LGBT. Romance and sexual orientation just shouldn't be in the priority of these shows, period. Getting back on track, another example about a younger generation that are being quote-unquote groomed into this lifestyle by the people they look up to the most, their parents. Though this applies to certain certain situations, some children are definitely put within certain circumstances that can alter the perspective of easily impressionable children. This is also a section from our previously scrapped script that I feel pairs well with the subject. Mark Dice, a political YouTuber, points out that in his Earthspark video that a notable figure in the LGBT community, Marcia Hardin, may have some questionable ways when it comes to her parenting. Now, I would just like to state for the record that I do not 100% agree with Dice's political views. Just a look at his channel already shows what type of person he is. Marcia Hardin is a female actress who's not one, not two, but all three of her children have come out as queer. Look, I'm not trying to plant any ideas in your head, but I'm sure you can already see my suspicion here. There's no way that all three of your offspring can come out as queer without any form of influenza. She is a notable figure in the LGBT. It is not my place to say if there are any malicious factors at play. I very much doubt it, but all in all, if your kids do feel the way they do without any external force, then all I can do is give them my best wishes. But it is something I can't help but question. Another thing Dice brings up is drag, which is something that I would like to divert my stance for just a split second because I don't believe there's enough attention about it. Drag is a form of entertainment that can always be interpreted in many forms of different ways, both positive and negative. One main fact that people can collectively agree upon is that drag is and has historically always been for adults. I haven't been to any personally besides maybe one drag play this year, but through word of mouth and on the internet, they have always been centered around adult themes, usually being sex. Common argument of this topic is the banning or restriction of these drag shows. Obviously, banning it would be wrong since it does infringe on our First Amendment right. The reason why people are against these shows is because of, you guessed it, children. People are mainly too afraid of their children being influenced by these shows, either by the sexual natures of the show or the sexuality these shows sometimes do demonstrate. Typically always. I support those who participate in drag shows. It's not my cup of tea, but hey, to each their own. For the most part, it's pretty much harmless, only if children are prohibited from these activities. Parents willingly do bring their children to these shows, knowing at least the definition of drag, and somehow get surprised by the contents of the show itself. It goes both ways, really. Drag shows should stay to what they were intended to be, adult entertainment, and parents should hold themselves accountable for their own actions not involving children under any circumstances. I strayed off the path of the direct meaning of bigotry unintentionally, but I feel like I needed to correct some common misconceptions or at least give general information. Aside from homophobia, and as I've mentioned before, racism is also a major issue today, especially today actually. Causes of blatant bullying of different races / ethnicities have had a major spike after the 2016 presidential election of that year, right after a very peculiar 45th president, who shall not be named, took office. Refer back to my first statement in the beginning of this video. House divided among itself is pretty lame, and I'm not going to delve into what political party you should or shouldn't be supporting for. What I'm going to say is for educational purposes only, nothing more. Voters' discretion is advised, I guess. After ex-president Donald Trump won the election in 2016, instances of racism skyrocketed, especially towards Mexicans and Muslims. Prior to his election, Trump made sure to barrage Obama during his time in office, accusing him of being Muslim and not of American origin. Claimed Obama was a traitor to the U.S. and was a cause or mastermind behind ISIS. Many of his supporters began to spread Muslim hate across the country, with bullying in schools becoming a major issue during this time period. Another one of Trump's obsessions were immigrants. Immigration is a huge problem that I personally find to be a very real issue, but that isn't the main subject today. Trump is very vocal about his views on immigrants, and to a certain extent those of Hispanic origin, which as you could expect also came with its own negative effect on the general public. One specific example is the tragic 2019 shooting of El Paso, Texas. Patrick Crusius was a young man who opened fire in a Walmart where he killed over 20 people. In his manifesto on online activity, he made it very clear on his distaste for immigrants due to a quote-unquote a mass replacement of the white man. That shit insane, if you ask me. Patrick did defend Trump from the allegations that he caused them to kill innocent pedestrians, and although this very well can be true, the influence from Trump is still very well visible, which is shown through Patrick's political / online history. Moreover, anti-Semitism and Islamophobia cases are on the rise today, and that's because of the current Israel and Hamas war. Scholars of prestigious universities were either victims or the perpetrators of racial discrimination. There are dozens of protests that have taken on and off campus due to the lack of action taken by by administrators to punish those responsible. Quick side note, because of these protests, some of these prestigious schools like Harvard and Columbia are being threatened by some of their former alumni, who some are Jewish, to cease donating because of the students who are protesting for Palestine. To me, that's completely wrong because they're not protesting for the victory of Hamas, they're protesting for the innocent lives lost due to the conflict. But form your own opinion. A 6-year-old child was killed in his own home by his own landlord because he was Muslim. Since tensions are so high, people are afraid to leave their homes in fear of persecution. I'm not even going to pretend that I know everything about the ongoing war, since it is a lot, but what I do know is that it does not grant anybody the right to hate any specific ethnic or religious groups just because a small percentage of bad people are associated with said backgrounds. There are more things I could talk about, but that would mean turning me nitpicking things about the left wings and right wings, and this already being a political topic is something that I really shouldn't delve into just yet. Bigotry is what I believe to be a downfall of modern society. If we can't solve this problem together, then instead of working on a better tomorrow, there will be unnecessary bloodshed that will continue to get worse. But as always, everyone has their own opinions. If you have any questions or comments, then please, you already know what to do. Please stay safe, and I'll eventually see y'all again. Goodbye.
You kill me